Howdy folks, Chuck Schiel here with Making Music Magazine. Today we're here in the studio with another edition with a professional music person who really does professional music stuff. Today we have mastering engineer extraordinaire guru Paul Abbott visiting from San Diego, California today. Not only is he a mastering guru, he is also a very qualified guitar player and composer, songwriter, recording artist, etc. So today, here he is in 3D. Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Chuck. How are you?
Good. We have snow here in New York. What, you guys have snow out there on the coast?
You know, maybe up in the mountains, not on the coast, but it is, it's winter. It's chilly at night.
Yeah.
So
Goes all the
enjoying
way down to 52.
right? I got in my car the other day. It was like 40, 41 when I got in the car. So it is legitimately chilly.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So, today we're here to talk to you about the mastering process.
Yeah.
To many folks, it is an enigmatic, necessary part of the recording process.
Yeah.
For those folks who find it enigmatic, will you please explain that and demystify it for us a little bit?
I will do my best. I'm still trying to demystify it for myself in many ways. But maybe we'll start with how I perceive recording audio. And we can kind of go from there and things will unfold. I have been involved in music in one form or another for over 40 years. And that started with me as a youngster learning an instrument and then moving on to doing home recording when I was in high school. And then when I had more money, going on to doing more professional recording in real studios. And what I have learned about audio is that there's a lot of analogies people make, but it sort of exists, I think, in sort of three quadrants. The first of those is capturing sound. And these apply, in my opinion, no matter what level of technology you're using or what era we're talking about. So I think they're sort of universal. So there's capturing sound, and that would be in a recording studio, putting microphones in front of amps, or even, being in a home studio recording into a computer. And when the capturing sound is finished, then you move on to mixing sound. And again, in a studio or in a home, or this could even be done remotely, different parts of the world, people sending files around. And when mixing is finished, then you go on to mastering sound. And in each of these separate things, you really can't do in one phase what is required in the other. So in some ways, I think of it as like how people, you do cooking, baking. You have ingredients, you mix them together, and then you put them in the oven. And you can do things, of course, nothing exists perfectly. So there's always sort of, okay, we recorded things, but maybe something wasn't quite recorded well enough, or it was recorded too loud. And so then in mixing, you mix things together, but you try to maybe fix some things in mixing that weren't done in the previous step properly. And when that's done, you get to mastering and you think, okay, here we have things where it's all sort of glued together to, say, a stereo mix. And you do the mastering process, which is really more fine-tuning. And I'll get into exactly what I think mastering is. But there is an opportunity to then maybe repair some things or optimize some things that weren't quite done properly in mixing, in mastering. So in each step, you have here is the core reason for doing this step. But there is also an opportunity to finagle some things in a way that weren't maybe done as well as they could have or should have been done because of knowledge, time constraints, budget, whatever exists. I mean, this is just the real world of everything, okay? It exists in whatever you do. So in mastering, people send me something and it's a finished mix. And what I have learned over time is that, maybe as a younger mastering engineer years ago, I would have thought, oh, here's the mix. I'm going to put my signature sound and stamp on it. what I've learned over time is that people really are delivering to me the best of what they can do. And it is the closest to their skill and knowledge of delivering something in their head to reality of sound. So I've learned over time that it's sort of incumbent on me to not try to change what they have done, to apply my own signature to it, but really to refine and just bring out the best of what they have done. And so then that gets to, what is it that really is? And people always want to know, what do you do in mastering? And to sort of follow the path of enigmatic a little more, I don't know what I'm going to do until I hear what someone has done and they give me. So I can tell you, well, I have an equalizer and I have a limiter and I have a compressor and I have converters and I have tape saturation and I have these tools that are specifically set up for mastering, meaning that they're a little more refined than what is set up for recording and mixing, because you're dealing with a little more just fine detail. So you may have equipment that's set for half decibel adjustments, or even, quarter decibel, as opposed to 1 or 2 or 5 decibel. And so I have to listen to what someone has given me as a mix, and then I say, okay, here's what I hear. And I'm believing that this is the best of what they could do. Now, if someone is listening or, making something where they have small speakers, they might not have something that represents the bass completely. So they have done a mix where I get it and I feel like it's bass heavy because they're working with small speakers. And in those small speakers, they're pushing the bass because they're not hearing all of what's there. I have more of a full range audiophile speaker system. So in a mastering environment, hopefully you are hearing everything that exists from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz and putting a lot of, effort into getting an accurate playback environment. So when I get something, I might say, well, this sounds really good. It's very bass heavy. How can I take a little bit of the bass off without really digging into the music? So maybe some subsonics, things that, people would feel but don't hear, and they're muddying things up. So I can maybe use some, like a high pass filter to dig into some things that are really kind of like just heavy information that's taking up bandwidth and things like that. And then sculpting the sound a little bit in a very subtle way, and then reducing the dynamic range. This is part of mastering as well. So when you do a recording, in the studio, you have things that have more of a high dynamic range, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the overall listening world. Because when people listen, they're in their car, they have earbuds on and they're running. They might be on a plane, a train, out in the world of environmental sound. So taking the quiet things and making them louder, taking the loud things, making them quieter, so that there's more of a consistency in everything. And that will translate to people can hear detail better. The trick in where this becomes, important to having like a good playback system is that I don't want to do that too much, because then I'm kind of getting rid of the impact and the dynamic content that really is necessary in music for people to feel, what the artist wants them to feel.